Okay, for those of you who are watching on Facebook Live later on and maybe podcast as well, just know that this show is a continuation of the first time Dr. Mensah was on the show. Many people have taken advantage of his wisdom and knowledge, and Misti and Blake will be joining us later to discuss their results. They have agreed to, and we'll ask them again if it's okay to discuss their problems and issues that they're having and why they sought out Dr. Mensah. And so we are going to get started. So fasten your seatbelt because we are going to learn and grow together. Here we go. It's time to dance.
The Lillian McDermott Show. We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who have tuned into the show since 2011, or the classroom as we call it now, welcome back. Or maybe you just tuned in yesterday for the first time. But if this is the first time that you are tuning into the Lillian McDermott Radio Show classroom, then know that I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends at Lillian's radio show on Facebook Live, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Live the life that you were intended to live, because you have been able to eliminate any doubt in your mind that you're doing everything you possibly can to heal your own body. Be your own medical detective, your own MD. And today we have Dr. Albert Mensah. And I learned about Dr. Mensah after I learned about Dr. Bill Walsh. He wrote the book called Nutrient Power. I saw him during a presentation, and he had me from the beginning. Dr. Mensah, his mentor is Dr. Bill Walsh, and he has taken the baton and is doing great work with this, what we call a chemical imbalance. Well, what is that chemical that is an imbalance? Could it be vitamins? Could it be other things that are in the body? So that is when Dr. Mensah is able to come in, do some work, check what's going on, see if there's some imbalances. They brought it down to different characteristics, 7 different characteristics. And so today is like a continuation of the first time that Dr. Mensah came on. And we're going to be talking about what happens when you actually start working the plan, giving your body what it needs. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Mensah is back to do just that. Welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show /classroom, Dr. Mensah.
Thank you, Lillian. Thank you very much.
It's been a while since you've been on. I hear that you've been traveling the globe.
Oh, yes. We've been on the other side of the planet twice in 1 month's time. So it's been a real busy kind of a thing going on.
Well, let's talk about that and why it is that the busyness is happening now and people are getting excited about what you're doing. Share a little bit about your background and what led you to go down this route.
Oh boy, that's a really loaded question. Really, the long and the short of it is that listen, I'm no hero. Okay, I'm a real skeptic, and I didn't believe any of this stuff about nutrients and chemical imbalances. Going back to med school, that's what we're taught. That stuff doesn't exist in any significant kind of fashion. So nutrients don't work. But I had a very close friend who was a very no-nonsense person who really was in this world of trying to understand why children she was seeing were being put on high-dose antipsychotic, antidepressant medications with severe side effects when they weren't designed to treat children. And that led her on a journey that brought her to our original institution, the Pfeiffer Treatment Center, now closed. That's where Dr. Walsh started his aspect of the work from the great Carl Pfeiffer before him, who really was the pioneer in all this.
Got it.
Anyway, she went there and saw some amazing things. And she called me and said, you need to see this. I said, are you kidding me? This is wonderful. They're treating schizophrenia. People are going back and getting jobs. They're having families. Autism is being healed, all these fun things. How do they do that? She said, well, do these vitamin regimens. I said, wait. Nutrients. I said, we know that stuff doesn't work. Come on. She said, no. You really have to see what they're doing. So anyway, I went to this place really out of pure skepticism. And, back in those days, I was actually, I was pretty good with the human brain back in med school. I was quite the star in that area. And so I figured, the worst case scenario, I'll go there and amaze them with my own brilliance. And that ego that walked into that, yeah, absolutely. That ego that walked into that facility, by the time I left there, it was down at the size of a pinhead, because I couldn't believe the brain power that was there between Dr. Walsh and Dr. Robert DeVito and these amazing neuropsychiatric gurus. I figured what I was seeing was either the biggest, crock in the world, or it was the most amazing thing that nobody knows about. And they actually called me 15 minutes on my way home and offered me a position. I said, hey, listen, I was not here for a job interview. I was just curious. And nonetheless, I explored it. Every day I saw people getting healed in ways that we in traditional psychiatry or family medicine simply could not do. This was not fakery. This is not chicanery. These were real people getting better all the time. Not just one or two people. There were droves coming into that facility, and droves were leaving healed. So I never went back. Instead, what I do is I took that information, and now at Mensah Medical, we treat the entire system, not just mental health, but everything, because it's all related. But at the foundation is indeed brain chemistry and psychiatric or mental health disorders. I just like to call it brain dysregulation. So I didn't look for this. It kind of found me.
Yeah. And
ever since then, our goal has been to spread the word, whether it's here or whether it's in Australia or Ireland or England, wherever it may be. People need to know out there that the number one thing that's out there is hope. And that's what our primary message is. Don't accept the words, you are stuck this way, your child will always be this way, you're going to have to learn to live with this. That does not exist in our world. In our world, we're sitting there with cutting edge knowledge, information, and processes, and they're not always having to be so complicated. That's the best part. Okay? And it's not about some gene, it's about the entire system that comes into play. A gene is only one aspect, but somewhere between a gene and you are trillions of biochemical reactions. Some compensate, some make worse, but first you've got to explore before you can find out what the real deal is. So, and
that exploration is what has started this whole process. A lot of people who have seen you in our past shows, and for those of you who want to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, just search for Dr. Mensah's show with Dan Hansen as well. And that was the first time that we did a show with Dr. Mensah. And Dr. Mensah, after our consultation, had offered Blake and Misti to be tested, because there were some issues there that they have agreed that they want to talk about on the show. And it's been a while since they started. I believe that they've been doing the medication, the supplements. But do you find it that it's difficult for people that come all excited? I've followed up with certain people, and they just don't want to do the supplements, or they don't want to try new things. Do you find that is true in every case that you have discovered that have come to Mensa Medical?
No, not in every case. In fact, quite often it's the opposite.
Okay.
The vast majority of people are coming because they're looking for the natural way to get better.
Mm-hmm.
They recognize that drugs are a very quick, I don't want to say quick fix, but pharmaceutical agents are quickly acting, maybe over the course of a month or so, but they're not treating the underlying problem. So you're stuck on these meds, and at best, maybe you're neutral. Some people actually do well on them, but most people that come to us are really looking for fixing the underlying condition so that they may do well ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the most part, individuals are actually very, very proactive. But, we give them a timeline. We tell them that once we know your chemistry, you can see how long things will probably take, but they're not expecting anything overnight. So the individuals who are the ones who really don't follow through with the nutrient programs are usually the ones that are there because somebody else wants them to be there.
Ah, okay.
But those who are coming in, haven't gotten any answers from traditional medicine. They're told, we don't know, or this is just one of those things you're going to have to be on medication on for a long time. And many people don't want to accept that. And they shouldn't. Now we know differently. We know better. But the real deal is it's a process that is a time-honored process. This is one of those things that requires time to change. Remember, it took you 9 months in your mother's womb to be born, okay, to survive in the outside world. Now, if we're going to undo or change the regulation of your DNA, that's going to take time too. Mm-hmm. So people have to be patient around this process.
Absolutely. And I love that. It's amazing that the marketing for the pharmaceutical will say, okay, you take this pill and everybody's supposed to have the same reaction. It's supposed to help everybody. But the reality is there's no one size fits all. So do you find that everybody who comes to you as an individual has certain needs, or can you say, okay, like I said, you had that you had 7 types that people fall under, or do you just look at the individual themselves and kind of work with that?
Forgive me, we had a bad internet connection for just a moment. I heard the last part about, or do you look at the individual and work from that? What did you say part of that? I'm sorry.
So basically what I'm saying is that people have been sold a bill of goods with pharmaceuticals. That one pill helps everybody get better. And we have that hope on that one pill. But when people come to see you, they realize that it's a combination of many things that they would have to do. But there's also different types, personality types or traits that you look at as well. So what comes first, the individual or the traits, or how do you narrow down what is needed for that particular individual? And I think
the answer to that is yes. It's all the above.
All the above. I love that. I love the fact.
Individuality means that your chemistry is individual. Your genes are individual. So you cannot have a one-size-fits-all regimen. That's why you really just can't expect to do well by going out and buying a bottle of supplements or taking several of those supplements and think that you're going to be fixed. No, each of those multivitamins out there has something that everyone needs, but you might not, or not in the right concentrations, the right proportions, or some of those things can actually be harmful for you. Mm-hmm. So first we find out who you are. We talk about not just your personality. We talk about the difficulties and the challenges you've had when you've had them and so forth, from childhood all the way through adulthood, things in your family history. When you're a patient at Mensa Medical, we go through a very extensive process of gathering information. That's part one. Mm-hmm. And then we have the patient interview. So we hear from you specifically about your perceptions about what's difficult. That's part two. Then part three, we actually test your biochemical individuality. That's part three. Now, from all of these factors, we put together then a protocol that is designed for your chemistry. So, Lillian, we might design a protocol for someone you know. You might even be related to that person. Mm-hmm. If you take it, you're going to take a wonderful multivitamin. If they take it, they're taking a healing regimen. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference.
Yeah. And it's very hard because we've been so conditioned that everybody who's depressed has to take this pill, and there's a different variation of each pill. and we have so much hope on that pill, but there's really more than the pill. There is, this the spiritual aspect of what that pill could represent in our life. The physiological, what are we eating? How do we stress? How do we live our lives? And you guys look at all of that as well. So let's take that, as you and I were talking, after I had my blood work done, we discovered that I was deficient in zinc, and I was deficient in certain things. And you had asked me to go on to the massive doses of what I would call, over the daily recommended allowance for zinc. At what point do I check again and say, okay, I've been on this now for 8 months, 9 months. Is it time to reevaluate because I can go on the other spectrum, or will I always need that dose?
Well, we always check in 3 months ago, Lillian. Okay. So you're overdue. Usually every 6 months for the first year.
Okay.
After that, we've got a very good concept as to what your body is doing with those supplements. Everybody's reaction is different. Some people will zoom pretty quickly into recovery. Other people will take longer. For most people, it's sort of the slow and steady walking up the hill to reach your goal.
Okay.
So at 6 months is classically when we recheck the chemistry. And then we make adjustments with regard to how your body is adjusting.
Very good. Okay, so I guess I'm due to have my the adjustments that I've made in my life for the differences, because you thought I had pyrrole disorder, but because I was deficient in other things, that perhaps maybe I was compensating and all of that. So I would love to go back and have that tested. But we also, when we were on our conversation, we talked about, the fact that I've never really dealt with depression, and I've never really dealt with anxiety. Although, if I think about it, the way I deal with my anxieties, I get things done. So I over prepare. So I write lists and I check them off my list and I get them done. And that when I put that on the list and I know I'm going to get it done, I can relax. So, but when it comes to panic attacks and depression, that kind of anxiety, I don't deal with it. So in our conversation, Blake and Misti, we had offered them, and you guys can, let me go ahead and unmute you guys. And if you guys want to come on to, let me see if I've unmuted. There we go. You guys are swapping on me every time I click on it. So we have Blake. I don't know if Blake, there you go. There's Blake.
Hello.
And Misti. There you go.
Hello.
And so they volunteered to try the protocol. And so we can start with Blake. Blake, you want to tell us a little bit about what you were experiencing and why you thought that this is something you wanted to do?
Well, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, and growing up, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I did not like taking the medication for it. And as an adult, I've been, not taking medication for it, but also still experiencing difficulty, focusing and following through with things. But this is live. Yeah, you can edit that out later, that awkward pause. But there was a lot of things I felt like that I was holding myself back with not being able to focus enough and have, the motivation or energy after a long day of work to get things done. So that's what made me curious to, this could, if just a peeing in a cup and a blood test could, what happened? There we go. can figure some things out, or help with a natural approach, then I was definitely interested.
Okay. So you have agreed, both you and Misty have agreed to discuss your situation, right?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, I agree.
And okay, so you met with Dr. Blake. You met with Dr. Mensah,
Yes, we had a phone call.
and how? Okay, so Dr. Mensah, at this point, you know, I don't know what you've prescribed, the supplements that he was needing. How do you normally go about with your discovering what you prescribe for Blake?
Well, the first thing that we did with Blake was to talk to him about what his challenges were. We talked a little about his history, about his current situation, and that already kind of gives us some anticipation about what his test results are going to look like, at least ballpark. In this particular setting with regard to consultations that we do, and that's the form we use, not a formal patient status, but a consultation, those test results also came in fairly quickly. So what was very interesting, and Blake, I just love your chemistry because it was really just terrible. And the worse it is, the better people do on average. Okay? But here's something else that's really different, Blake. When we get your test results back, we actually see what are some of the underlying causes of what you're going through. So it's not like with, forgive me, traditional medication and pharmaceutical agents where you take something to help the symptoms. We're not only treating the symptoms, we're also looking at the underlying causes and trying to regulate them.
Yeah.
That's a major difference. So Blake talked about focus and attention issues and ADHD growing up and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, Blake is undermethylated. And we know that quite classically, individuals who have what's called undermethylation, or relatively speaking, high levels of histamine, are individuals who will oftentimes have poor control of focus and attention. They may develop OCD type symptoms. They may develop anxiety or depression. So we already see that even with just one chemical evaluation, we've already pinpointed where Blake's primary challenges are coming from with regard to the focus and attention piece. But here's what's really interesting. So Blake, you're such a wonderfully blessed person. For your anxiety, not only do you have one underlying cause, not only do you have two underlying causes, Blake, you young man have three well-defined, independently available causes for your anxiety. Aren't you just lucky?
Is one of them my mom?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
The answer to that is no. Your mom loves you a lot.
Blake has a condition called pyrrole disorder. That by itself can cause anxiety. Blake has a condition of having low zinc levels. Just low zinc by itself can also produce anxiety. Blake has undermethylation. That by itself can produce anxiety. So it's not even just the idea that it's a one thing that causes one problem. This, in his case, is multifactorial. We've identified three of the major factors that can produce that symptom. Which one is the primary factor depends on how long it takes him to actually get better. Because we know how each one of these chemistries progress over time. So the one condition, for example, pyrrole disorder, can move very rapidly in terms of improvement, anywhere between 3 weeks to 3 months. Things like low zinc levels can take 4 months for those symptoms to improve. Undermethylation, now that's the real interesting one. That one can take anywhere from 9 months to a year and a half. So if the anxiety piece is still present after 7 or 8 months, we know that's a methylation issue, okay? Because he's got two other issues that are sitting there being treated, and those would normally correct around that period of time. So one of the best parts to this approach, which is really what got me here, is that we can actually see what's causing these challenges as opposed to simply giving medications or giving nutrients to treat the symptom. Okay.
Sure.
We do both, by the way. We're not going to let Blake sit there and be anxious for another 9 months or so. We're treating his symptoms as well as treating the underlying causes.
So Blake, when you heard Dr. Mensah read his analysis or his interpretation during the consultation, did you want to start taking these supplements, or how did it go?
I was, well, to be told, that, you're just ADHD, or, and then to be told the reason you feel anxious and you have trouble focusing is you have, a underlying condition or a disorder or something that's, causing this behavior, and it's treatable. Well, first I did a good amount of research into what he told me with the disorders so that I could, visually read and for myself, and a lot of the symptoms and work almost spot on to describe, how I was feeling, and so it was almost a sense of relief because, it's treatable. There's something I can do myself and to work on it, and so it was definitely eye-opening, and definitely sparked my curiosity to go further with taking the supplements.
And so you've taken the supplements now for how long?
I've been steadily with all of the supplements for a couple months now, I would say.
Okay.
Since April, steadily with everything. So it's June, so that's 2 months.
Okay.
I would say.
Have you noticed any changes in yourself or any?
Yeah, I definitely have. A lot of, the, like, for example, my work at work, I have found that I was starting to want, more work and more, responsibility. And instead of just waiving it, I actually brought upon myself to, I feel, more motivated during the workday. I have more energy, to the point where, like, when I get home, I'm dancing around my wife, because I'm home and I'm excited to see her. And but staying focused and being able to, not worry about things, it has definitely helped. My motivation to achieve goals or start towards goals and things that I've wanted to do for a while, within these couple months, like, one thing I wanted to do was start a YouTube channel. I wanted to ask for a raise. I wanted to start shooting competitively. And I've started doing all those things since I've been, it's just been an extra energy boost to want to do those things, to have the focus and desire to just, instead of just second I get home, take my pants off and get into bed, so.
Well, that's great news. That's great news. Dr. Mensah, is there anything you want to, is this something that you hear all the time when people actually start taking the supplements?
Yes.
I'd also like to add
Misti,
that I've, over the last year or so, he's had a harder time gaining weight, and I noticed that he'll lose weight, and since he started the supplements, he's also not been losing weight, and he's been able to, I've noticed he's gained a little bit of weight, which is something he's been trying to do, so it's definitely helped that a lot for him.
I'm glad you pointed that out, Misti, because Dr. Mensah, you said that there's a way to eat also nutritionally when it comes to pyrrole disorder and the disorder that Blake had, which, full disclosure, I am his mom, the one that creates all the anxiety in his life. So, but it warms my heart, Blake, to see that these supplements have really helped you.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that you're going to continue taking?
Yeah, I'm curious to see, with the long term, because this has only been short term so far, and like, he said that a lot of these take a lot more time. I'm curious to see where you know, that goes, because I like how I feel now, to the point where when I miss a day, I can tell the difference.
Wow.
Like that if I don't take my B6 or the
Sammy.
E, yeah, the Sammy, you know, or the P5P, you know, I can tell when I don't take it, and I don't, you know, it's where I like, oh crap, when I get home, I better take that, or, you know, and also I feel like it makes, because with the weight, I found myself, you know, holding off to eat and eating less, and then like I find myself wanting to eat, you know, wanting to gain weight. It was just, it's been very, you know, so yes, I'm going to continue.
That was all that for yes. Okay, so Dr.
Yes.
Mensah, is there anything that you would like to add to what Blake said, or?
Well, I think Blake spoke for himself pretty well. You know, the key things is that somewhere around the 1 year mark is when we really look at where we anticipate stability. This is all ramping up. What Blake has predominantly experienced within this short time period is likely the treatment of his low zinc and pyrrole disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Pyrroles are molecules that create not just mood instability, but stress intolerance. Now let's look at what he said. Basically, he said, listen, I've always wanted to climb these 3 mountains and haven't had the energy or the capacity, or maybe I had the fear of going up Mount Everest.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, after starting these things and treating what he doesn't know is his condition of stress intolerance, with that removed, he's now able to handle more. Blake said, I'm going to ask for more work now. How many people in the United States of America are trying to get more work for the same pay out of their job description? Now, Blake, I'm not trying to move you in the wrong direction here. Don't get me wrong. But what he said is, I'm ready for more challenge. Now, there's a great deal of positive in that. Now, when your employer sees you're actively working harder and looking for more, there may be a promotion that comes out of it.
Oh, okay. I got one.
You did? Well,
yeah.
Look at that. Now, he didn't say that in the air, and Blake and I have not talked about it.
I know. I haven't either.
Congratulations, Blake.
Thank you.
Now, I'm not saying taking supplements leads you to a promotion.
No, but
it can certainly be part of letting Blake, the real Blake, shine through.
Yeah.
He's been in a cloud for a while. And now his system has shifted, his cognition has shifted, his chemistry has changed to allow the real Blake to come out and flourish.
I love the real Blake. And look what he's created, Dr. Mensah, since taking the supplements. He's making these rings that are made with granite and wood resin, right, Blake? So he's creating his own business as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Congratulations.
I'm contributing to my wife's business. But that's also one thing I've been wanting to do for a while. So yeah, that was a good reminder.
Yeah, we can. You're going to be selling these pretty soon, but they're just beautiful. I just thought I'd put in a plug for my son. Okay, anything that you would like to add about the nutritional aspect of people that have his condition? Because, you know, as you know, I'm whole food plant-based. Misti is also more towards whole food plant-based, but people with pyrrole, what would you like to say about that with people who have a nutrition?
Well, what I want to actually talk about more so is people who have undermethylation.
Okay.
Because for individuals who've got anxiety or ADHD or depression, most of them are actually very similar to one of Blake's chemistries. This is this high histamine undermethylation thing. Now, it's not about histamine. Many people get that very confused with mast cell disorder and things like that. Mm-hmm. This is about what we call methylation. This is a molecule, a carbon atom with 3 or 4 hydrogens that literally regulates your system. Now, the vast majority of people who have those conditions similar to Blake are low in this molecule. There are very, very few of them, and so his system can't regulate properly. Now, here's the thing about diet. A plant-based diet is high in folates, okay? Folates steal methyl. A carnivorous diet, many people don't want to hear this, but it's just the facts. He's a machine. His body is a machine, and the machine requires certain fuel. Okay, you don't take a Volkswagen. I love cars, so forgive me. You don't take a Volkswagen and put in the same grade fuel that you use in a Ferrari. Blake's a Ferrari. If you give him a plant-based diet, he's going to turn into one of those cars that's sitting out there rotting, on the farm somewhere with no engine and no capacity, because folates steal methyl molecules.
Amazing.
That's like saying you're out there on the street and you've got your last $10. And some guy hears about you and comes up, and he's a con man, and he says, listen, I'm going to offer you, Blake, $5. And Blake says, thank you. Starts to give him the $5. He says, no, wait, I'm going to need $10 from you, and then I'll give you $5 after that. That's a loss.
Yeah.
And that's what actually a high concentration of plant-based diets can do to people with certain chemistries like Blake.
But when you looked at my chemistry, I thrive on a whole food plant base.
Absolutely. In fact, I've got your test results right here looking at them.
Yeah.
You biochemically are designed for a plant-based diet. You really are. You will thrive on it. Your son will not.
Yeah.
Because he comes from 2 lineages. Okay? So it's all a misnomer. It is a big mistake. In fact, it can be dangerous for either side of the biochemical situation here. Okay? Blake on Blake's dietary regimen, beautiful. Blake on yours, problem. Yours on his, problem. Happy Thanksgiving. It's not going to be an easy time.
Well, I still make their turkey, so it's a McDermott favorite. So now Misti, on the other hand, we haven't really talked about either one about what's going on. I just found out what the supplements were, and as Blake's birthday gift, we gave him his supplements. That was our birthday gift to Blake, right, Blake?
Yeah, that was helpful.
Yes.
That was useful.
So with Misti, would you like to share a little bit about your the reason why you chose to do this?
Well, I guess a little history of mine. I have been diagnosed with severe major depressive disorder. In my past, I've tried multiple SSRIs like Prozac and Zoloft, which I had a horrible response to. So I've always kind of been against that and really interested in trying something else. And so I've noticed that my depression is all based around my cycle. So it's all hormone related. So there's a certain week of each month where my depression would be real and right there. And so
Shark Week.
Blake called Shark Week. But yeah, it's always kind of controlled my life. That's always been the really tough week out of each month where I would, close the blinds, turn my phone off, and it's definitely something that I noticed that, for example, one of the supplements specifically that I'm taking that you recommended, I had run out of. So I was like 2 weeks where I didn't take it, and I really noticed. And that's when I was kind of like had a moment of like, okay, dang, that's I need to get that like today and get that back in my life. So definitely.
So you started taking the supplements right away?
I would say kind of like with Blake, I got a few things here and there. I know the NAC I already had, and a few, like I started the B6 right away. And so I kind of eased into it. I also like to kind of introduce like one thing a week at a time just to be safe. I'm a little overly cautious with that, but for sure the evening primrose oil that was the one that I had run out of, and I noticed a big change. And another one is zinc. I think you told me I was deficient in zinc as well.
Is there anything you want to, and what about with her nutrition, Dr. Mensah, and some of the underlying conditions?
One thing I really wanted to comment about Misti is that she's very different than the two of you biochemically. Okay? One of the key pieces for her, as she's already brought up, revolved around her cycle. Now, I'm bringing this up because a good 30 to 40% of the population, not just in the United States, but globally, suffers from conditions similar to Misti's. And they go to their doctor and they're told, listen, this is just a hormonal thing. We can put you on oral contraceptives. We can put you on these medications. And, that's just something you're going to have to deal with the rest of your life. Not true. Misti's situation really revolves around either an elevated copper issue or something very close to that involving the same molecule. So one of the things that we did is we went to treat that side of the equation, because if you don't specifically target that, she's still pretty much going to revolve around similar symptoms no matter what other nutrients you add into the program. So we kind of adjusted and interpolated a little bit based upon the history that she gave us as well. So it's a very, very common history. You have fibromyalgia, you have all these wonderful things happening to this poor young lady cyclically. That tells a story in and of itself. Okay, so we went ahead to target that because that was very key. Now for her, on the other hand, nutrition, right? Diet. So many people will tell you, well, I'm on a plant-based diet and I eat nuts and I eat legumes, I eat that. Wait a minute. This young lady can't turn around and eat almonds. A favorite of many young ladies out there. It's just your snack, you roast them, you just pop them anytime you want, you put them on your salad. She can't have avocados because avocados, another wonderful favorite for many young ladies in salad, they're high in copper. So she eats those things and she's gradually feeding her copper levels. It's not that she's environmentally toxic and consumed by copper. She more than likely has a genetic inability to get rid of it. So her system, unlike yours or unlike Blake's or unlike mine, doesn't work very well when it comes to regulating the copper in her body. So it builds up over time.
Wow.
And then it can quite literally produce things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, along with symptoms of anxiety or depression or menstrual irregularities and things like that. So, the primrose oil that we talked about helps with the symptoms, but it doesn't treat the underlying cause. Now, the nutrient approach outside of that treats the underlying cause. But note what Misti said. She said, if I don't have this one element, I feel it. And that's because that one element is helping to treat the symptoms, the visible manifestation, while the rest of her program's designed to treat so both together.
Can you repeat that again? We lost you. Yeah, we lost you for a little bit.
Individually. Okay. So it's a combined process.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I said that with her, what we're seeing is that we have to treat both the symptoms and the underlying cause. And the element she was talking about, the EPO, is designed to treat the symptoms of copper toxicity. And we also make sure that we are treating the underlying cause as well.
Interesting. So copper toxicity, chelation work for that? How do you?
No, that's a bad word we come from.
Okay.
Chelation is not specific. It generally targets almost all the metals in the system and strips them.
Okay.
And at the same time, people say, well, here, we're going to put the good metals back into your system. But you know how long it takes to build the levels and strip them down to zero? 3 to 4 months. So you are functionally very challenged and miserable. We regulate these elements out of the body.
Okay.
And they're targeted. So it's her copper that's being removed, not any other metal, just the copper.
So so how did you test any of her other metals, and where did she get the copper overload?
Now, see, the copper overload is not because she is swimming in a sea of copper.
Correct.
It's because her body is not able to remove the copper itself.
Got it.
The way your body does, or my body does, or Blake's body does. She has a genetic dysfunction where some of the enzymatic processes, some of the, let's just call it the systems, the garbage men are on strike. They only work part-time with her. Okay, so the garbage of copper accumulates over time in the alleyways and wherever else we find garbage and so forth. So it's not about toxic exposure. It's been increasing all the time. Here's why it's so particular for females. Estrogen causes copper levels to rise. Okay, it's estrogen. So when doesn't she have estrogen? It gets worse a week before her cycle. It increases. So when the estrogen levels rise, it causes copper levels to rise from whatever the baseline point was to begin with. Now, here's the difference. When her cycle is done, the estrogen levels go down, but her copper levels stay at that new set point, that new high. And because of that, when her next cycle begins, it's not starting from down here. It's starting from up here. And their
Yes.
symptoms get worse. And for individuals like this, we call them the copper toxic female. These individuals typically don't do well on estrogens or even some combination of oral contraceptives or things along those lines.
No, not
It's
at
not
all.
that
I got so sick. I've tried every single one whenever I was, younger till for a good decade of just, I've tried the patch, the pill, the shot, and they all made me very, very sick.
And that is such a classic statement from so many young ladies out there and older women who are going through menopause. Some of these young ladies who are in their 40s and 50s now take hormone replacement therapy, which does the same thing. It increases copper. So for the 30 to 40% of females out there that are copper toxic, this is a big problem.
Wow, 30 to 40% copper toxic women out there?
Absolutely. You should watch Dr. Judith Bowman's video on copper toxicity. She's a world-leading expert on women's health and nutrient imbalances. It's about an hour and 15 minutes, but it's packed full of information that many females who've been told you just have to deal with these issues and have no idea what the underlying cause is, they can now see that not only is there understanding about these conditions, but there's treatment and there's hope around it as well. You don't have to live that way. So Misti, I want to thank you because yours is a really shining example of many females out there who don't know any differently because they haven't been told any differently. And you really represent a tremendous number of people who are in pain who can be helped.
Wow. So Misti, you said little by little you added all the supplements that you need to take. Have you felt when you had your cycle, did you feel any different or?
Yeah. So as you know, and I've had a hysterectomy a year ago, but I still, because I'm so incredibly sensitive to my hormones, I still have my ovaries. So every month I know my cycle. I know when I have my invisible cycle, but it's there. And so it's definitely kind of reduced my symptoms a lot. So, and that was when I said I really noticed when I had that 2 weeks of a difference when I was like, wow, I haven't felt this in a while. And that's when I went straight to the store.
Yeah. Okay. So her nutritional, you said she can't have avocado. She can't have, what else did you say? Almonds?
I gave 2 examples
Yeah.
of foods that are high
in copper.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying you can't ever eat them again. What I'm simply saying is that you can't live on them. You cannot have them frequently. It's okay, yes, to have an avocado maybe once a week, okay? But there are many young ladies that we talk to who are saying, well, I have an avocado salad every day for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
my
that
favorite
was
snack
me.
is almonds.
That's no way.
Is that you, Misti?
Yeah, almonds, avocado.
We drink
Yeah, I
almond milk.
definitely lived off of, a lot of that stuff.
So as we kind of wrap up, go ahead, Dr. Mensah.
So here's where we have a prime example of a young lady who represents millions of women globally. I'm not saying billions or whatever have you, but millions of women go through this as well, especially those who are very plant-based and plant-conscious. Mm-hmm. They're looking at these particular foods as being sustenance, because there's some good stuff in avocados and in almonds. The difficulty is when the bad outweighs the good. And now we have to shift our perspective on what we're going to eat because we have to stay away from those things. Now, unlike Blake, Misti doesn't have a methylation issue, okay? So she could pretty much, as far as methylation is concerned, she can be a carnivore, she can be a vegetable person. It's not going to change her. But for her, she's highly sensitive to copper-rich foods. So again, you want to Google, Misti, the top 10 foods high in copper and probably just minimize them, okay? So food can exacerbate a condition just as easily as it can help support a condition. Anyone who talks about extremes, I'm like, listen, if you are a person who's got no cognitive issues, no physical issues, no problems whatsoever, if your machine runs optimally, You know what? If you want to go ahead and eat krill from the bottom of the ocean while breathing underwater, feel free to go ahead and do it. But if you're having difficulties and challenges, you've got to be more cognizant and more aware of what actually can cause problems for you. The machine does not have a personal philosophy of life. It doesn't have an approach that it's adhering to relative to lifestyle choices. It only knows what it needs, and it only knows what can make things difficult for it. We cannot override our bodies. I have news for you folks out there. Okay, we are who we are, and as long as we are in these bodies, like a person driving a car,
Yes.
you've got to feed it what it needs, or it will get worse.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
That goes
We would never put sand in our gas tank and expect for our bodies for the car to run. And
Yeah.
nobody would be shocked if the car wouldn't run. But we treat our bodies less than we would treat our own vehicles. And
Oh,
so
absolutely.
those are things that need to change. And as a matter of fact, real quick, because this conversation has been, hopefully will be life-saving for some people out there that identify with Blake, identify with Misti, and Dr. Mensah, you're so good at explaining why. You know, I didn't understand, you know, the different aspects of undermethylation, overmethylation, pyrrole. There's so many different things that this will help. And for those of you who want to go to Mensah Medical, and Mensah is MENSAH medical.com, that you're welcome to go there, learn more about the testing, the consult with Dr. Mensah, and it's nice to see how much it has improved their life as well. So thank you, Dr. Mensah, for changing the thumbprint of their DNA or their whatever is going on with them. I know that I want to, real quick, because we're about to finish the show, I want to encourage, for those of you, go to whenyouneedafriend.com, be a part of this classroom at whenyouneedafriend.com, subscribe, and also check out my sponsors, check out the different ways that they have stood for this class, and figure out ways that you can support them the way that they are supporting us. For example, Liberty Health Share, Keep Me Safe Organics, beauty products that are all natural, organic, and non-synthetic. We also have First Alternative Care, the pharmacy in Merritt Island, Dr. Stephen Grable in Jacksonville, who is also alternative, holistic, and is able to treat the patient, not the symptom. And so that's what I love about you, Dr. Mensah, and I'm looking forward to learning more. I want to do a show where we take one disorder at a time and maybe have people, or maybe one or two, where people can actually identify with that and say, wow, there could be, because you're working with schizophrenia. What are other conditions that people have been labeled with that you're working with?
Well, I would say if it involves the human brain, except for migraine headaches, we treat it. Schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, ADHD, autism, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorders. These are some of the big ones that people, globally tend to have that we work with. Then there are things like eating disorders. Now we're working with addictions. We have not really been able to do that up until literally the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. So everything now from alcohol to drug use, we can now become part of that process to help individuals move beyond. Body conditions like Misti has now, we've been talking about fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, ovarian cysts, even breast cancer. We're able to support that with nutrient therapy. We've moved just from the realm of the brain to now everything that is connected between the brain and the body through nutrient approaches.
Great.
In other words, neurological disorder now, we're actually able to help. Things like Asperger's
Can you repeat that again?
syndrome,
Can you repeat that again?
Visual tracking disorders, developmental delay, all of those type things are now well within our grasp of helping individuals move and grow beyond. A lot of children who've been told, well, you know what, they've got executive dysfunction, and adults as well. We can now help that. We can now help move people to a very different level, processing.
Well, there's hope, and I'm hoping that everybody who's watching today, Dr. Mensah, can see themselves in this hope, and saying that, one size does not fit all. And I am an individual. And so that one pill is not going to help me. I still have to help myself. And so, Blake, is there anything that you would like to add before we go regarding the changes in you? Are you surprised that you've experienced this?
Well, one thing that was a surprise, and growing up with the influence of a plant diet, changing my diet, it was very interesting for Dr. Mensah to say, you are a meatitarian. Start eating as much meat as possible, which I have, doctor's orders. And that's also been helping gain weight, and but it definitely that was kind of like a oh, well, not everything is one size fits all.
That's it. Not even nutrition. That's right. That's right. And what about you, Misti? Is there anything that you would like to say before we go?
No, I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dr. Mensah. You are amazing, amazing, amazing. And I'm hoping that people will, from Misti, and I'm thrilled because I really have not spoken to them about this. So I'm thrilled that they were able to share naturally without any, I told them to share whatever they wanted to share. I didn't want to hold off the process. But there's even more than this. These are just two people that have affected my life, and I've seen some changes in them too. I can only imagine what is out there. Sky's the limit, Dr. Mensah, now that you're working with even other conditions. Is there anything that you would like to say before we go?
Well, I'm going to put in a plug for our own new research institute. It's been around for a couple of years, and now we're really ramping up on that. So if you go to the Mensah Research Institute.org, I believe, or go to mensahmedical.com and look at our Research Institute link. You should be able to find it there. Your support is greatly appreciated. Anyone out there, it's tax deductible. Get a little thing to give to the IRS and so forth. Mm-hmm. That's there to now help bridge the gap between cognitive disorders and physical disorders. Wow. We are extremely, extremely tied into solving the mystery of cancer. We've already got a great cancer support program. We've helped a lot of women with breast cancer. That's a really big deal because I lost 2 close personal friends from med school to breast cancer. And that was long before I got on this field. So I swore if I ever found anything to help fight that beast, I was going to do everything in my power for that reason. And that's one of the reasons why we developed the Mensah Research Institute. So not just breast cancer, but even other cancers as well. In addition to autism and schizophrenia, there are a variety of things that are now being rolled up into how nutrient approaches can help change not only the individual, but because we know the individuals make up the world, we're looking to help change the world.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Mensah. I know that our time is up. We're going to have, I'll check out all the questions, if there's any questions from our listening friends, and I'll check them out. But thank you very much for what you're doing. Thank you, Misti. Thank you, Blake. And please remember, one size does not fit all. You've got to listen to your body and give it what you need. Please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott, Dr. Mensah, Misti, and Blake wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, here we go. Thank you so much. This is there anything that you guys want to add?
Still live.
Yeah, we're still live on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
And Blake, you need to still behave, okay? So, I was going to say, will you stop moving, Blake? He was like, this whole thing was like, I'm trying to focus and I'm seeing Blake just go back and forth like that. I'm like, oh gosh.
I didn't take my medicine.
Okay. Is there anything else? For some reason, this is frozen for me, so I really don't know if there are any questions out there. Let me go back and look at it again to see if there's any questions from our listening audience. So for some reason, I can't see Blake. Yeah, I don't see any questions. I want to thank everybody. I want everybody to share. This information is very important and very empowering. And Dr. Mensah, is there any last things that you'd like to share before we go off the air?
I really just want to say congratulations to Blake. I'm duly impressed, and Misti, really congratulations to you too. I hope things continue to improve for you. And don't forget, when things are moving smoothly, every now and then you still got to check out the old machine. And so the periodic reevaluation with the chemistry and how it's going can tell us a lot. So that's all I want to say, and do your best to stay on top of those nutrients. And Blake, congratulations. Misti, congratulations as well. And Lillian, thank you for putting all this together.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mensah, for volunteering and giving this wonderful gift to my son and his wife. And I'm hoping that they'll be able to use this to expand further what their dreams are. So, Blake, thank you.
Sorry, my daughter I made a face to my daughter.
Oh, you made a face to your daughter. Okay, here we go. Okay, so thank you so much. I don't know if, please share it out there. There's a lot of people that have been told that this pill is for the rest of their life. And the reality is, what does this pill do, Dr. Mensah?
Yeah. This pill is a temporizing agent. It may help you stay stable. It may give you lots of side effects. It may make things wonderful for you. But at the same time, we need to know there are alternative ways to go about things and without complications.
Very good. Very good. So it's Dr. Mensah. It's mensahmedical.com. Go check it out. And if you want to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, check out some of the previous shows that Dr. Mensah has been on. And hopefully we'll continue doing these shows because it's so important that we get this information. This chemical depression could be zinc. It could be what else, Dr. Mensah?
Methylation. It could be thyroid, which most people will know about. It could be copper. It could be a lot of things. The interesting thing that I do want to make clear is that what we did with Blake and Misti was only at a consultation level. It was only for some of the more major biochemical imbalances. It was not 100% comprehensive. So they're doing this well with just a little bit of information. There's still a lot more that's gained when you have a full patient status. And then there are tremendous amounts of information and approaches that can be taken that are really more comprehensive. Yet they're doing very well just with this. So if you can't afford to be a patient, a consultation is a great way because we can still get insight.
Yes. And do you accept any insurance, Dr. Mensah?
No, that we don't, not just yet. Insurance companies are still a little bit shy on this process.
Yes, absolutely.
But, that's what consultations are for.
I think another thing to just quickly add to is just, in the beginning, Blake had a little bit of a headache, but after a couple days that passed, and then he was able to see the benefits from it. Because I think that scares a lot of people too, is when they get that headache and then they kind of just give up and quit right then and there.
Questions would be things like, did we take it with food, for example?
I think what it was is it was like my first day taking all of them all at once. And I found, I took a day off from it after that, and then I started again, and it, also with food. But once I got used to it, I wasn't feeling that anymore. But I was also told that to expect that could happen, but it was only a temporary thing. So that's why I chose to also continue, with it.
Good. I'm glad to see. Could it have been dehydration, Blake?
It could have. I mean, it could have been a lot of things, but I just feel like it might have been a bunch of things all together on top of taking them all at once.
Well, let me just chime in here, Blake. what more than likely happened is treating your methylation, we weren't very gentle with you.
Yeah.
You have a very solid methylation issue. So we really targeted it in a powerful sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
And the nutrients I'm not going to mention, not for any other reason other than don't want people trying this at home on their own. We targeted your methylation. Your system got a wonderful push in that direction that's kind of jolting for some people.
Yeah.
Not everyone reacts that way, but there's also a gradual titration process that's involved. And so you were hit, and that can produce headaches for some folks.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really where that came from. I just looked at the supplement list, and I could just tell. I said, "Oh yeah, that can cause headaches."
Yeah.
But it's transitory. Once again, it's not.
It went away after I got accustomed. It wasn't like a everyday thing. It was like that first day, and then the next time I didn't. Actually, for the next couple of days, I kind of took most of them, and then I tried, eliminating one of it, and then reintroducing to it gradually as I became accustomed to, most of them. And so I felt like I just, jumped in too quickly with all. I needed to kind of like, instead of jumping in, kind of dip my toe in and then gradually,
Which is the advice that you probably received. That was the advice I got from Dolores.
Yeah, they recommended taking the half dose for the first couple of weeks, which I did. And then once I took the full dose, so that's when, I got that headache on that day. But then, like I said, once I got used to that, I didn't have that anymore.
Very good. Very good. So that's a good point. So, that titration, Dr. Mensah, is crucial for some people. Maybe for him, I'm just amazed that you're able to figure out so much with such a small amount of testing, And we're told that chemical depression, and what's the chemical? It could be like as simple as zinc.
Well, we don't, a lot of people check for, say, hundreds of different chemical tests and so forth and things like that. We don't look at numbers. What we look at are what the key issues are likely to be. So, for example, in the military, I'll put it this way. I watched a lot of these movies, unfortunately, that involve, the FBI and finding the kingpins and they're the guys on the street. Our government officials are not looking to do business or monitor the guy who's on the street. They're looking for the man who gives the orders, the woman who gives the orders, the top people. When you deal with them, everything else falls in line with a domino effect. Okay? That's what we do. We find the chemical imbalances. We already know what they are. We find the kingpin imbalances that produce all of these things. So it doesn't take a few hundred tests. We know quite specifically which tests produce which imbalances, which now lead to this and this and this. And so we treat from the top down. We're not looking for 500,000 things that go wrong. Okay? People don't get better that way. It's dealing from the top down.
Very good. Now, there's another characteristic of people who are going through this kind of undermethylated, overmethylated, all these different diagnoses that are given, plus they're pumped with different psychotropic drugs or whatever it is. You said they have a tendency to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol. Would you like to share or anything with what you've learned statistics?
Well, it's very true. A lot of what's happening, we look at people very differently now. Way back when we used to say, gosh, this person is just so unstable. They have no self-restraint. They're addicted. They're coping this way and blah, 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 blah. It's very different now. We know that people who are undermethylated have a high, very, very high capacity for addictive behavior, meaning for them, they are extremely challenged. One try, one little participatory event, and you can be hooked for life. That's with undermethylation. Overmethylators, on the other hand, they can do all sorts of things for years and years and years and then just stop, just like that. And that's one of the major differences in smokers. You've heard of those people who say, well, my mother smoked for 30 years. She just decided to quit and she stopped. My sister, smoked for just a week and she could not stop after that. She's been hooked for now 30 years herself.
Mm-hmm.
It's methylation. That is the difference. Methylation disorders affect addictive capacities. That's just one chemical imbalance that can do that. So we now see that somebody who's not aware, most people have no idea what their methylation status is, but they know how they feel and they know how addictive their personalities can be. So it's very, very significant. When we look at addiction, we're looking at, first of all, what is your methylation status? Okay. And if you're sitting there over-methylated and you're addicted, then usually something else is going on cognitively, whereby you're relying on these things as a crutch. Whereas with under-methylation, on the other hand, what you're really doing is that your system can't handle it and it needs it more and more and more. So there truly is chemical addiction, but not all addictions are chemical addictions. Some of them are biochemical challenges that underlie the so-called outside chemical addiction behavior.
And so with people that are undermethylated and you fix this situation by giving them the supplements that they need, do they find themselves saying, I don't need this drug anymore? Can they just do that like the person that's overmethylated?
Over time, that can be done, but it's not a quick fix. What it involves is indeed, in part, doing your best to stay off of those crutches, if you will, for at least a couple of months. And then by that point in time, your chemistry is supported enough whereby you don't quite need that other crutch quite as much. But just like pouring fresh cement down, you've got to wait until that chemistry hardens. And so we look typically at 9 months to a year, okay, where things are really solid. And then people are really doing much better overall.
And they can
make better choices about it too.
Yeah, because we had privately talked about marijuana and your concern about marijuana with people that are undermethylated. Would you like to share that statistic?
Marijuana is not just with regard to people who are undermethylated. That is the one drug, and yes, I'm still calling it a drug, that we don't have real capacity around right now. Cocaine, PCP, ecstasy, LSD, any drug we're now able to target and help treat. Marijuana is not one of them. It is highly addictive. It changes receptor sites in the brain. It is one of those things that will first impact not just your drive. Yes, it can make you more relaxed, and eventually it blunts you into sitting down in your basement and doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And then we now understand it can produce psychosis. It can produce schizophrenia. A long time ago, I used to think that it was a matter of not coincidence, but a lot of schizophrenics smoked marijuana. We thought it was because they were schizophrenic that they smoked marijuana. We began to see for ourselves with regard to our patients, many of them began smoking marijuana long before they became schizophrenic. And then something really interesting happened. The American Academy of Family Practice, not Dr. Mensah, family practice that governs our boards in medicine, family medicine, came out with a study showing that 1 in 6 individuals, there's a 6-fold increased risk for the development of schizophrenia with regular uses of marijuana.
1 in 6.
6-fold increased risk. And I just said, there we go. Now that study that we did not do validates what we've already seen. Mm-hmm. Okay. So not only that, things like what you're going to be hearing about more in the next 5 years, things like a vomiting problem, a vomiting syndrome. It's called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, CHS. And that's where people can just start throwing up for days, literally, without being able to stop. They go to the emergency room. People don't know what's going on. The treatment for this, IV haloperidol, IV Haldol. So many people smoke marijuana and think it's safe because it's a natural element, they believe. Then they end up going to the hospital because they're throwing up. And then the treatment becomes an antipsychotic drug, which is what they didn't want to do in the first place. Okay. Now, not everyone is going to get this, but this is something doctors in America are now being made aware of, because my colleagues in Australia have been seeing this since 2004, when marijuana was first legalized there. Okay. This is a very common syndrome in their emergency rooms. In fact, the joke is they say, put on your boots. People will lose 2 to 3 days worth of work time, 2 to 3 days worth of pleasure time, being in the hospital, being given these medications every 6 hours, IV, intravenously. So the ramifications are huge. It's not a benign creature. They may legalize it. That's mostly profit and monetary based. Anything that you can do with marijuana in terms of anxiety or helping alleviate depression, things like that, you can do with a lot of other natural agents. You don't have to go to marijuana. It's not going to bring you, those things are not going to bring you down.
Okay, so that's for another show. I do want to do a show on that, especially the connection between that and schizophrenia. 1 in 6, that was very. Now, are you talking about THC or are you talking about smoking it?
I'm talking about either.
Both. Okay.
And then people think CBD is benign. CBD also, there's a study out there that shows CBD can cause psychosis. So I always tell parents, your child who's got autism, we're trying to help their brains. Don't give them CBD oil.
Okay.
Not a thing to do.
Seriously, a show we need to do in the future because there's so much, benefit out there, that benefit talk for CBD oils. And so the first time I heard you say that, I thought, wow, we really need to hold in the reins because, we're, and it's not the first time we've been told something and something else is real. And so I'd love to explore that with you in the future. And so thank you so much, Dr. Mensah, for everything. I appreciate you, Blake and Misti, for being on and sharing your story. And I hope that for those of you who are watching and learning Dr. Mensah, it's mensahmedical.com, and learn a new truth about this chemical that could be causing depression, which could be as simple as a supplement or a vitamin deficiency or copper overload, who knows? Just learn a new truth. So until now, we'll see each other till we meet again. And I am going to stop the stream. There we go. And also